On today's episode of the 1% Podcast, we're excited to welcome Anthony Guho. Anthony is one of the owners of Guho Corp, general contractors, a fourth-generation construction company headquartered here in Eagle, Idaho. Anthony is also the newly elected president of the Idaho chapter of the AGC. Anthony is an amazing advocate for the construction industry in the community as well as throughout the country. We're going to highlight Anthony's journey from his time growing up here in Idaho to his time at Boise State University and throughout his time in the construction industry. We're going to talk about multi-generational businesses and his experience in his family business and the things that he's learned through that and some of the mentors and people that have impacted his life to this point. So we're excited to have Anthony Guho on the podcast with us today.
Working through my 20s, early 30s, it was just head down, grinding it out. At the time, we're building cool projects, solving complicated problems, building the team, doing so many good things, but you get so caught up in just the day-to-day grind. So I would say looking back, taking time to enjoy the journey.
And so people are putting their trust in you as a leader, and to be able to lead and inspire people, you have to help them to see a vision of the future that doesn't currently exist, and to help them to understand and to see how their part in that is not only benefiting the company and benefiting you, but it's also benefiting them. And I think that's one of the biggest differences that I see in great leaders versus average leaders or even poor leaders is their ability to lead and inspire people, right? People want to be around them. People want to work with them. People want to work for them. People want to.
There were no limits on what could be done, but there was also, you had to put in the work, and, nothing is beneath you. And so, you can't ask someone to do something you're not willing to do, but just that mindset of anything's possible, really got that from the family and growing up around the business. And
Anthony Guho, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Cam.
So to give a little bit of context here, I like to kind of lead in. Anthony and I first met probably 17 years ago, 16, 17 years ago, something like that. I want to say it was like 2010, end of 2010. I just moved back here. Anyway, you and I started working together and been good friends ever since, or at least I would consider us good friends. I'm not sure if that's reciprocal or not, but really respected and, had a front row seat to be able to watch what you've done throughout your career and what you've accomplished and the projects that you've worked on, the things that you've done. And now as the newly elected president of the Idaho AGC, I thought it'd be a great time to get you on the podcast. So appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Cam.
So let's talk about, I like to kind of give the audience a little bit of an introduction, let them get to know you a little bit. Talk to us about what was life like growing up, where were you born at, raised, family, siblings, kind of the whole, what was life for Anthony Guho like growing up from 0 to 18 years old?
0 to 18. So, born in Southern California, unfortunately. Moved up here, elementary school age. Moved out to Eagle. Went through Eagle Elementary, Eagle Middle, Eagle High. One brother, 2 sisters. So growing up, it was a very active household.
And where do you fall at in?
So I'm the second oldest, so older brother and then 2 younger sisters. Growing up in Eagle in the late 90s, early 2000s was leave it to Beaver. Couldn't get much better.
Yeah.
But, it's been fun to watch Eagle grow over the years and whatnot. So
obviously you guys are a 4th generation family business, right? It says it right on the signs. Talk to us about like what the family business was like, obviously transitioning, bringing that from California, coming to Idaho, and what did that kind of look like growing up as far as like your guys' involvement in it? Was your mom involved in the business too? Or is it just like your dad and your uncle? And how did that kind of look for you growing up? Did your dad take you around to job sites with him in the pickup truck? And
so
what role did that play?
Yeah, right on the money. 4th generation family company started by my great grandfather back in 1919. Started doing underground utilities in Southern California, right in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. So great grandfather started it, and then my great uncle and grandfather took it over, and then my dad and uncle took it over, and then moved the company up here in 1993. So growing up, it was a family ordeal. I mean, I worked side and side with my great uncle and my grandpa, well into their 80s and 90s. They would be out there running equipment, around the house and doing different projects. And so learned from them, what hard work was and, how to physically work and do the different, I remember installing sewer pipe with my great uncle and, so it's cool to grow up around that and see the multi-generation and just the family aspect. But it was a big focus of the family. My mom's not in the business at all. She ran the house and ran that whole side of it and raised the 4 kids. And all 4 of us are within 5 years of each other. So it was
It's a lot.
a lot going on. And she did a great job, balancing, all the different activities and whatnot. And she kept us all focused and out of trouble. And so, yeah.
Well, and let's maybe hit on that for a second, because I don't think that can be overstated. We talk a lot about careers and achievements and things that you've done and education and growth and success and those sorts of things. But maybe talk for a minute about the role that your mom played in your life. And I'm a firm believer that having a good mom is the biggest advantage that anyone can ever have. And having a stable mom in your house and the role that she played in and what your life looked like growing up, what type of advantage do you feel like that gave to you and how did that help you?
Yeah, it's one of those things growing up, you take advantage and, you don't really realize how fortunate you have it. But yeah, couldn't ask for a better mom. And you talk about accomplishments. I mean, having raised 4 kids that I think we turned out all right. But, that was her day in, day out, grinding away with us and is your homework done and, taking us to school and showing up on time, picking us up,
Cooking meals and preparing the house and all that kind of stuff.
Every night was a, multi-course meal that was, I can count on one hand how many bad meals had growing up and, poured her heart and soul in that. And, it's true blessing to have that and, have that stability. And, she was the rock at the house and, having her take care of all the kids and take care of the house. And Dad was always, out grinding and providing. And so that combination, really made for a good upbringing.
Yeah. Did you feel like you always knew that you wanted to go into construction, that you always wanted to work with your dad? Was that kind of something that you had a feeling for, a proclivity for from a young age? Or did that kind of happen later on? I know some people are like, I grew up laying sewer pipe. I grew up framing houses. I grew up having to do this crap and I hated it and I wanted nothing to do with it. Where did you kind of fall on that spectrum?
I was very fortunate from an early age. Always loved working with the family and working aside, father and uncle and grandfather and great uncle. And so always knew that's what I wanted to do. And was very fortunate in that sense of not having to figure out what, the career path looked like. And, going through high school, always knew, construction management. And it was a very, very clear, direct path. And so, yeah, fortunate in that regard.
So you graduated from Eagle High School in 2005?
Yep.
And then go to school at Boise State?
Yep. So right out of high school, went to Boise State and was part of the construction management program. Went through that 2005 through 2009. And great program. Learned a lot. More importantly, made a ton of great relationships through the program. And yeah, fortunate to have a lot of those relationships still today.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've observed and I learned, early on in you and I's friendship is that Anthony's really well connected and he's really good at maintaining relationships, right? Like hanging on with people that you've known for years. And like, that's something that over the years I have grown and found tremendous value in. And I counsel people all the time whenever someone asks me like, hey, what are the things that I can do to help me set up for success? I say the biggest thing is you're going to get paid based on what you know and based on who you know, right? Like gaining a skill set of knowledge that can't be taken from you, that can't be replaced, that you have experience and know how to do so many things, but also that you're really, really, really well connected, right? And if there's a problem, you don't have to necessarily know the answer to it, but you know people who can help you get it solved. And so having a great network around you, having people surrounding you that are smart, they're well accomplished, that or doers, like all those things will help increase your personal value. And so I tell people all the time, like going to college, one of the best things you can gain from going to college is gaining a network, right? It's the people that you rub shoulders with. It's the connections that you're going to make in the industry that you want to go into, and maintaining those relationships for a really long time.
No, could agree more. The college, the relationships, I mean, you're going through the construction management program. So, at first thought, you think you're, there with a bunch of your competitors, but some of the best relationships I have, are with direct competitors. And so having that network and having those, relationships where you get into a hard time, you can call on that friend and, they've been through it or, can walk you through it. And so relationships and network is huge.
Talk about your experience at Boise State. What sorts of things did you feel like added value to you and to your experience? For someone maybe considering a career in the construction industry, would you recommend attending Boise State or attending college at all? And then if so, like what sorts of things did you do and get involved in that you would recommend to someone else to get involved with to expand their educational experience?
I would say on the college versus non-college route, you have to have the desire to want to go to college so much. And especially when we grew up, it was sold to everyone. Everyone has to go to college and that's the only way you're successful. And those days are far behind us. So I think college, if you truly want to go and you have a passion for, what you're studying, that makes sense. But if you're just going because your career counselor or your parents told you to, and you don't have that passion, you're wasting your time. But the construction management department is great at Boise State. I always describe it as you're getting a half engineering, half business degree. When I was going through the program, it was a lot smaller than it is today. So it's a very close-knit group of individuals. Great program, a ton of emphasis on giving back to the community. So one of the things that really stands out to me in the college time frame was there's what's called the Construction Management Association, which is basically the students' club for the department. And through that, they do community service projects. So like when I was there, we built a greenhouse for Borer High School. They do ball walls for the different elementary schools. And so it really set a sense of community, and we learned as much in those community service projects as we did in the classroom. And then that time also really fortified those relationships that we talked about earlier. You were out there, a bunch of kids figuring out how to get something built, figuring out how to, get along, and leadership skills. And that time was so valuable, and wouldn't give that away for anything.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. And I tell people all the time that no two educations are alike, right? Like it would be possible for someone else to have gone through the exact same program that you went through, but not be involved, right? To choose to not get involved in those kinds of things, to show up, to seek to, be in leadership things or serve or whatever that looks like. And yeah, you could go through school and go check off boxes, but what are you really there for, right? And like getting a piece of paper, like I think that you said this really well. I tell people all the time, like degrees are not valuable, skill sets are. And are you going to get a piece of paper, or are you going to go get a skill set? And if you're going to get a skill set, like what am I wanting to take away from this? A network, hands-on experience, leadership opportunities, working with others, right? Like all those kinds of hands-on things that you gain by being involved in something like the Construction Management Association, going and doing competitions or other things like that, right? Like there's opportunities to try to maximize your educational experience versus doing the bare minimum to just try to get by on something.
No, agree on that. Like when I'm interviewing and looking for potential candidates, you can have 4.0, and if you weren't involved outside the classroom, that's okay. Good job. You were there for yourself, and you passed the test. But looking at individuals and what they did outside the classroom during their time at college, that's way more valuable to me as an employer. And I look at that, and that far outseeds the academic side of it, and so that's huge.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more, right? You take two prospective candidates. One of them has a 4.0, didn't work at all going through school, didn't get involved, didn't have any of this outside of the classroom type of experience. And then you take someone else who worked their way all the way through school, who was working jobs in the industry, gaining hands-on experience. They were getting involved in leadership and opportunities like that in the Construction Management Association or others. They're serving and building and giving back and taking opportunities to learn through these projects. Like, okay, maybe this person had a 3.1 GPA versus the person that had a 4.0 GPA. I think that you and I and most other people in the industry would rather have the person that worked their way all the way through school, that gained that experience, that learned how to be a leader, that learned how to get hands-on, that learned how to give back and to do all those other things. So the idea of just saying, well, I went to school and I got a 4.0, therefore, like, I'm an exceptional candidate to go get hired isn't the case, right? And I think that just plays back into that belief that employers want people with skill sets, right? Like, you hire people, I hire people based on their ability to get me something in return, right? Like, I'm hiring someone so that they can go do something that would otherwise fall directly or indirectly on my plate or someone else's plate in my company. And I'm banking on the fact that they're going to be able to go do that at a really effective rate, right? That they're going to go do that in a way that they're making me more money than I'm paying them to go do that. And what evidence do I have that this person is going to show exceptional ability to be able to do that? Well, that's all I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for someone that's showing me that they have exceptional abilities to go get things done, to get things accomplished, not, hey, they went and checked off some minimal boxes along the way.
No, if you're technically sound, that only gets you so far. And like, you have to be able to work with people. You have to be able to interact. And, if you're focused on yourself, you're only going to get so far. But all of a sudden, if you can work with others, you're multiplying that effort. And that's where true success comes in, is, taking what you're doing, inspiring, motivating other people, and building that team to where, it's multiplied and you're not just out there working by yourself.
And you hit the nail on the head. I don't know of anyone in the construction industry that works by themselves, right? It's like, it doesn't matter who you are, you're working with other people, right? You're working with other stakeholders in a project, owners, designers, subcontractors, like, no matter what it is, like, there's no such thing as a one-man team. And so no matter who you are, no matter what you think, like, oh, hey, I'm going to go do this, kind of do it by myself or own my own business and just run it by myself. I don't want to have a bunch of employees. Like, the reality is that you have to learn how to work with other people. You have to learn how to communicate with other people. You have to learn how to win friends and influence people and help work together for a common good. So talk about, after you graduated from school, what did that look like, kind of transitioning in, buying into taking over a family business? I think this is something that doesn't often get talked about a lot because they can be really difficult, right? Like, family relationships can be tough as is, and managing that, like, within business. If you don't mind, maybe kind of talk about the different roles that you and your dad or siblings or other people kind of fill in the company, and how you manage to kind of balance all of that stuff, and what does that look like in your world, and has that evolved over your time in the business?
Yeah. So graduated college, and basically it was, okay, well, go put your skill set to work. And so right out of college, first project I was put on was, we were building a cabin out in the middle of the Oahe Desert. So it was a relatively small project, but we were 2 hours from town, hour on a dirt road. And so I had to figure out, planning and logistics, and, you couldn't just run to Home Depot because you forgot something. You had to plan it out. And so that was sort of death by fire right off the bat, but really honed in some technical skills. Also managing the people, we would stay there 4 nights a week. And so you're working with everyone all throughout the day. And then, you're spending the nights with them. And so finding out, how to motivate people during the day, and, have them still talking to you at night. And,
Yeah.
and so that was good. After that, did a few more, continued running projects. The next major project was, we did a pedestrian bridge over at the Whitewater Park, or it was before the Whitewater Park was downtown Boise. And same type of deal, thrown in on that, bid the job, and then had to build it. Never had experience. The company didn't have experience doing it, but worked through that and built that. And that was a huge success. And then just taking it from there, running projects. And then as sort of got the project management side and that down, then got more into the business side of it, and and then got people less, I became less involved in the day-to-day on the projects and started becoming more involved on the front end of the projects, and then, the getting the work side of it and whatnot. And so it's been a good run. Working with families always interesting. Those lines and those relationships are, blurred. Fortunately, get to work with my father and two sisters every day, and so get to see them, a ton, 5 days a week. But it's sometimes challenging because on the weekends you're oftentimes talking about work. And you don't have that as strong of a personal relationship because you have such a work relationship. And so navigating that and balancing that, where on the weekends at, Sunday dinner, we're trying not to talk about work and save that for the rest of the week and whatnot. And then, also balancing, that relationship with your siblings and your, father, where, what normally you would put up with an employee might change, because they're family. And so having that accountability and making those, walking that line on that is always fun to navigate. And wouldn't change it for the world. It's been fun. And
if you could look back over the course of your career and maybe name a few important lessons or things that you have picked up over the course of it, right? Like if you could rewind back to, Anthony 20 years ago, what would be a few of those key lessons that you would try to teach yourself at a younger age that you've had to learn along the way and that you wish you would have known sooner?
So growing up, working around the family, hard work was always taught and always expected. And so very fortunate that like there was no shying away from working hard. Middle school on during the summers when everyone was out having fun, we were working around the business, be it picking weeds around the office or picking up trash on the job site. Like we were very involved. And so learning that from a young age was very valuable. I would say the biggest lesson growing up that didn't really understand at the time was the people side of it. I remember going through leadership classes at Boise State, and having grown up in the industry, it's very hard and tough love, and you don't show your feelings, you don't, you're there to do a job. And so sitting through those leadership classes, didn't really resonate. And then a few years after college, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is making a lot of sense. And like reevaluated that whole side of it where, you can't just, people aren't robots. People, you have to take care of them, and everyone has needs. And so understanding that and figuring out how to motivate and inspire people to do what you're trying to do, there's so much there versus just expecting everyone to show up and just blindly put their head down and go to work. Like those days are long behind us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you hit on a few skill sets that can't be overstated in their importance. The ability to lead and inspire people, right? Like at the end of the day, that's what your business is your business is a group of people that have a shared mission and set of values that they're trying to go and accomplish, right? No one's coming to work for you if they think that you're a thief or they think that you're dishonest or they think that you're not doing something that's worthwhile. So everyone's working for you because they believe, at least in part, in what you're doing, and they believe that the person steering the ship can get them where they want to go, right? Whether that's in the short term or hopefully for the long term. And so people are putting their trust in you as a leader, and to be able to lead and inspire people, you have to help them to see a vision of the future that doesn't currently exist, and to help them to understand and to see how their part in that is not only benefiting the company and benefiting you, but it's also benefiting them. And I think that's one of the biggest differences that I see in great leaders versus average leaders or even poor leaders is their ability to lead and inspire people, right? People want to be around them. People want to work with them. People want to work for them. People want to be connected with them in whatever capacity, because they have that, call it, an aura or the it factor or whatever, but people just are attracted to people that have a vision of what they want to do, and they're unwavering in their mission and their personal beliefs of okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to go. And this is how I'm going to get there. And other people see that. And if that person really believes it and is really willing to do what it takes to get there, other people are just naturally connected to that. And you see leaders all the time, if they don't have the vision, or if they can't communicate it, or if they struggle in their daily action and habits and the message that they're sending to their people, that you see those people struggle all the time, and those businesses fail very, very quickly. And a lot of people could be great employees, but they're not great leaders. They're not great business owners. And so that's one of the things I've really always admired about you, and certainly about a business that's been around for over 100 years. You can look and see, and there's patterns of leadership that have to take place. Otherwise, a business isn't going to succeed. And so, no, I think those are all great points that you made about that. If you had to look back over the course of your career and of your life, and maybe name 3 to 5 mentors or people of influence in your life, who'd you say those people were, and what were the lessons you took away from them?
So the biggest influence on my life would be my family. So, like I was saying, growing up, my father, uncle, great uncle, grandfather, like just having those role models that, were, you could look up to them, and there was nothing that, you didn't strive to be like they were, and just to have that influence and have that connection where, that showed you the path of, where life could take you, and what success looks like. And, just having that upbringing where there were no limits put on what you're capable of. And, you talk about upbringing and, the different challenges and whatnot. Like, it was never growing up like it was, everything was possible. And if you won something, there was a pathway to get that through hard work and, just grinding it out. And, there were no limits on what could be done, but there was also, you had to put in the work, and, nothing is beneath you. And so, you can't ask someone to do something you're not willing to do, but just that mindset of anything's possible, really got that from the family and growing up around the business. And, that's what's really propelled my success, is just not thinking with, restrictions, and anything's possible, and just go out there and get it.
Love that. What other mentors did you have? Professors, coaches, friends, or another, like, dad of a friend, or other people like that in your life that you felt like had a big influence? I know that, you've talked about some of the professors or other friends like that you've had, people that have mentored you and had an impact in the direction of your life. Who would you say some of those other people were, and what was the impact that they had on you?
So one of my favorite professors at Boise State when I went through the program, Dr. Casey Klein, he was the main professor when going through the program. He was so engaged with his students throughout the time, continues to be 20 years later. But he personally invested in the students that showed up and cared, and learned so much from him, well beyond the classroom. What's often overlooked with what he's teaching, the sense of service and giving back. He heavily promoted, the community service projects, and, hey, you're learning the skill set. How do you apply that skill set to help others? And so learning that and the importance of that, and not just, out there doing your thing and, making all this money and not giving back to the community. That was a huge cornerstone of his philosophy and teaching. And so to experience that in the college setting, and then, be able to apply that outside of college, has had a huge impact in my life.
No, I love that. You'd mentioned to me before we came on here, we were kind of talking about some of the different roles and responsibilities within your family, and anyone that's driven around Eagle for any period of time, you notice that you see your guys' signs in a lot of different places, and it's pretty easy to spot that you guys own a bunch of different properties and things like that as well. Maybe talk to us about your view, your family's view, who you may have learned this from, your dad or others, about the value in owning real estate, owning property, hanging on to buildings, having tenants, and in kind of that role of like vertical integration into a construction business, and how from things like self-performing, managing the overall project, and then even choosing to own and retain some of those properties and projects, just overall business philosophy that way. Kind of talk to us about that and the impact of that's on your career.
Yeah, real estate's always been sort of a side piece of the business, and it goes back as many generations. My grandfather and great uncle owned property, and dad and uncle own a bunch of property, and just that's always sort of the mailbox money, or you can work hard and earn that dollar every day, but investing in real estate, once that asset is there and you've got the building full of tenants, that money's coming in, and you're not working for that, your money's working for you. And so that's always been a part of the family strategy. And yeah.
Oh, owning real estate is, in my view, one of the best investments anyone can make. As I kind of teach and counsel or mentor other people, I say all the time that finding real estate that you can owning appreciating assets will bring tremendous value to you now and in the long term, right? Like, let's say hypothetically, an office building in Eagle, Idaho in 1993 would have cost $100,000, right? So here you have this building for $100,000. Maybe you have 2 or 3 tenants in the space. They're paying, $1,000 or $2,000 a month in rent. Well, you fast forward now from 1993 to 2026, and the value of the building has gone up exponentially, right? That building's worth probably 10 times what it was worth in 1993. So you have not only the value of the building, the value of the rents have subsequently increased on that as well. So you have an appreciating asset that's paying you to own it, right? And so the beauty of real estate isn't in owning it for a day or owning it for a month, or even in most cases owning it for a year. It's taking that long-term approach of, okay, how does this benefit us with a 25-year window, a 30-year window, a 40-year window? And when you start looking that far into the future, there's almost no investment that's a bad investment. And so, it's very, very rare that a piece of real estate is going to depreciate in the long term. Only time that happens in almost every situation is only in short term. And so I counsel people all the time, like, find a way to start acquiring assets that are appreciating in value that are going to pay you to own them, whether that's an office building, whether that's a house, whether that's a duplex or fourplex or something like that, but finding ways to be able to buy real estate. So, maybe as you're starting out, that's buying a duplex or that's buying a fourplex. You live in one of the units, you rent out the other 3, you put sweat equity into it and improve the property. After a couple of years, you can then go move out, put another tenant in. You could even refinance the property, pull money out of it, use that to help go buy another piece of property, and then, kind of rinse and repeat and be able to do that over and over again. But just having that view of trying to acquire assets over time. And as you pointed out, not just to go to work every day and I'm only getting paid for the days that I work, but finding ways to invest your money so that your money's working for you. And I think that those are some of the lessons that, it sounds like you learned early on. You learned that by example, watching, observing your family doing these types of things, rather than, being told, hey, like, you need to go get a job. You go to college so that someone will hire you. You need to just go work every day and that's it. Go do something that you hate. And then hopefully one day you'll be able to retire. The mindset and the things that are baked into you from a young age truly do have a massive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. The success was yours to go get.
Yeah.
And it wasn't relying on others, and opportunities were out there, and go make the most of them. But I think one thing on your real estate that touches home is the long-term side of it. And I think a lot of the success the family has had is that long-term vision, and not looking just for the short-term buck and flip the property, and just having that, okay, this is going to be a 25-year plus investment, and just taking that longer vision and not just looking for that quick buck. A lot of the properties we have, tenants have been in there 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And, treating the investment like that, where you're going to hold on to it and have that, engagement in the property, makes a huge difference. And versus just, oh, I'm going to buy this and fix it up, flip it, and, on to the next one. You're kind of limiting what that that long-term potential could be. And so patience goes a long ways.
No, I couldn't agree more. The only pieces of real estate that I've ever regretted buying are the ones that I sold. Like, if I had to do it over again, I never would have sold any of them. No, I think those are great words of wisdom. If you had to look back over the course of your career on a few of the projects that really stand out or ones that you're most proud of, are there some projects or experiences that you had along the way that you look back on and you're like, hey, these are some profound learning experiences or experiences that I really view as kind of the benchmarks of my career to this point?
So the number one project that's influenced my career, and was fortunate to work on it coming out of high school, was the Idaho Veteran Cemetery. And so we were fortunate in 2003 through 5 to build the first 3 phases of the Idaho Cemetery. And before that, Idaho did not have a veteran cemetery. So all of our service members, didn't have a final resting place. And so we were fortunate to win that job, those 3 phases. And so after high school, or during high school, after class and on the summers, was working on that project. And so to start out the career building something that, I remember talking every day, we would tell our guys, what we're building doesn't have a life. It's going to be here for well beyond what we're here for. You're not building a dentist office that, in 20 years is going to get torn down.
Yeah.
You're building the final resting place for, the heroes of this country. And so just seeing that impact that, the individuals had on building that was profound. And so that was the first project that really stands out. And then a few other projects, the pedestrian bridge I talked about, that came shortly after graduating college and was one of the first projects, and, just jumped in feet first. And
You'd never done something like that. The company had never done something like that. You feel like because you kind of had like direct ownership over that, so to speak, that it was kind of like your job, your baby. Do you feel like that was part of the reason why that had such a profound impact on you?
Yeah, we had, similar experience, but nothing like that. And, really empowered by my dad and uncle at the time, where, it was like, I was excited about the project, and, they were there to support, but, had to bid the project and then ultimately constructed and figured it out, and it all went well. But, that was one of the first, major projects that, just had to get through it. Another project that stands out was, we've over the years done a ton of work downtown Boise, doing streetscapes and road work downtown. And so our first streetscape project was in 2012. And so same thing, that was early in my career, and, basically bit off that project. And, looking back, had no idea what I was doing at the time, but
I remember being on that project a lot.
that was right when we met. And, but it was, I remember going home at the end of the day and sitting on the back patio, hammering out the schedule and just, wrapping my mind around it. And, Rob, who's one of our longtime superintendents, general superintendent now, his motto at the time was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so that was, what got me through that project was, you have this big monumental project that you're tearing up, I think it was 14 blocks of downtown Boise at the time. And, how do you attack that? And it was one bite at a time. And so we got through that project. It was a huge success. And then we've been busy tearing up downtown Boise and making it beautiful for the last 15 years.
Well, and I want to jump into that because obviously, like, Rob's a mutual friend of both of ours, and I have a lot of respect for him, and I know you do as well. Maybe talk about that dynamic and how you guys have made that work, because you coming in, obviously it's a family business, but you're younger than Rob is. Rob brought significant experience with him from coming up here from Southern California as well, and the role and I guess like managing that relationship and how that's benefited you, and just kind of things that you've done as a leader to be able to help empower the people around you, and then utilizing their skill set to help you to be successful in your business.
Yeah, I wish I could say that Rob and I had it figured out and had a nice, clean, easy path over the last 20 years, but it was a lot of just button heads and working through it. And fortunately, we both have the same mindset and the same integrity, and long-term goals and vision. And so, we might have been going at different ways, but, over the years we've aligned more and more, and have really dialed in the relationship. But it is a very challenging environment, coming in, 15 years younger, and working your way up and managing, the seniority and the age and experience difference. And so, we worked through it, and yeah.
I think a lot of things that I observed over the years in working with both of you was that there was a mutual respect between both of you, right? And like it was really clear that Rob had a lot of respect for all the work that you put in on the front end of a project, all the work that you were doing. I guess maybe even kind of say like behind the scenes on all the stuff that would need to happen. And then the respect that you had for the role that Rob was playing in the day-to-day operations of building it and making it happen and being out there and managing the team on site and suppliers and subcontractors and everyone else involved in it. And, like any relationship, it's, it's never perfect and it's going to have ups and downs. But I always appreciated viewing your guys' relationship and seeing that mutual respect. And even though you may have disagreements on things, like it was really clear that even though, at the time you were relatively young and he was older and more experienced, but that he respected the work that you were doing and how intentional you were about your role in it. And likewise, that you were really respectful of him and the work that he had done and the experience that he had. And you weren't afraid to lean on that and to say, hey, like Rob, like, how would you do this? Or how would you, like to do this? Or what would be your recommendation? And, I think that showing that clear mutual respect for one another goes a really, really long ways in being able to mitigate and manage relationships in businesses and families, whether that's with, partners or employees or subcontractors, suppliers, any other stakeholder in a project, of just being able to show mutual respect to other people and seeing like how much further that gets you in your ability to hopefully both get what you want out of it.
No, absolutely. I mean, like we talked earlier, you can't do this alone. And so finding others to surround yourself with, and then having the respect that everyone's got a role in these projects in the organization. And, no one's knowing everything, no one's perfect, and everyone brings their part to the team. And, that all comes together and makes for the success. But yeah, having the respect and understanding what others are doing, and also looking past the work, and everyone has personal lives, and going through whatever from time to time, and just understanding all of that and balancing that, and respect goes a long ways.
Yeah, for sure. A quote that I came upon a number of years ago when I was reading a book by Simon Sinek, and then subsequently came up in a couple other books that I had read after that. But the phrase that leaders eat last. What does that mean to you, and how does that impact the decisions that you make and the decisions as a business owner? How does that impact you?
No, that's huge. And I live by that philosophy of, you got to take care of your people. And when your people are taken care of, that takes care of you. And so if you put your personal interest first, like that's not going to get you very far. And so back to like the upbringing and growing up in a family business, it was very, there's stereotypes and the expectations. Oh, you're the boss's son, you're getting special treatment. And so one of the things I really focused on was like, I'm going to outwork everyone. I'm going to be the first one in, last one out. And, if I'm putting the effort, I can break that stereotype and earn that respect. And so that was a huge part starting out, is just putting in the work and not leaning on, could have taken a lot easier road and not put in the work. But in the long term, that gets the respect of the team when they see, you're showing up when you're not, expected to be.
Yeah.
And then, ultimately you're showing up because you want to be there, not because you're being told to be there. And so that's been a huge part. But you've got to take care of the team, the company, and then your personal, success comes after that.
Could not agree more. You've been very involved in the Idaho AGC. newly elected as the president of the Idaho AGC. Talk to us about your experience there. To anyone that isn't involved in the AGC that's in the industry, I guess, your sales pitch or your view on what the value is that people gain from being a part of it and how it's been a blessing to your company and to your career.
So the Idaho AGC represents the construction industry in the state. So we have 750 plus members representing all parts of construction. We have general contractors, all the big names around town are members. We have subcontractors that are a member, and then we also have associates, which are, construction affiliates that be it insurance companies or industry adjacent. But basically it brings all those different companies together and allows us all to work together to promote and advocate for the industry. And so a lot of the issues that all these individual companies are facing, be it workforce or legislation, we can all individually be fighting for it, or the AGC creates a platform where we can all come together and pool our thoughts in what we're doing and all be rowing in the same boat in the same direction and propelling the industry forward. And so been heavily involved with the AGC for the last 7-8 years. Was asked to join the board back then. And so sat on the board of directors for 5 years, and then was asked to join the executive leadership team, and then currently the president this year.
So what do your duties look like as the president? What type of a demand is that on your time, and just what are some of the benefits that you've experienced from being part of that?
So they do a great job with the leadership transition. And so it's a 4-year commitment. Basically you come in as second vice president, and the board meets on a quarterly basis, and then the executive committee team meets on a monthly basis. And so you come in second vice president and basically do that for a year, then vice president, and then past president. So you go from meeting once a quarter, sort of seeing high level 30,000 foot view, to you start getting down into the details. And then, as president, you're there seeing what's, going into the soup every day. Talking with Wayne and the team, generally once a week, but being there to be a shoulder for them to ask on industry questions. They're in the nonprofit, association world. And so, being there to explain how the industry works, or something will come up, and then being able to help them, see the business side of it where, they're not necessarily seeing that. Or, they'll get calls from members on questions or different things. And, so they'll ask me, well, what about this? Or what are you seeing here? And so helping them help the members is another big part of it. When the organization and the industry are doing well, we're all doing well together. So,
No, very good. Last couple questions for you. If you were talking to, maybe an 18-year-old version of yourself right now, what would be a couple of steps that you would recommend that 18-year-old Anthony take to help put him on a path for success? And what books or other resources do you feel like have been a benefit and a blessing to you that you would also recommend to someone in that same position?
The biggest thing I would say, looking back, taking time to enjoy the journey. Working through my 20s, early 30s, it was just head down, grinding it out. At the time, we're building cool projects, solving complicated problems, building the team, doing so many good things, but you get so caught up in just the day-to-day grind, you don't appreciate it. And so really taken a effort the last couple of years to, really enjoy what's going on every day, and not just caught up in the hamster wheel of, just grinding it out every day. And so that would be my biggest thing looking back, is just, enjoy where you're at. You're going to have challenging days, but those challenges, are opportunities and growth. And so what might seem like a bad thing at the time long term are making you better. And so just appreciating that at the time is a lot easier said than done. Podcasts or like books, love the Jocko whole series of everything and extreme ownership and dichotomy of leadership. I mean, just his mindset and what he takes, the Navy SEAL and applying it to business, is phenomenal. How to Win Friends and Influence People is another book. I remember my uncle passing that out. And, here's this book written, almost 100 years ago, and you see it and you're like, how does this apply? And kind of a cheesy name and whatnot, but you read that and it's so fundamental and so basic, but such a good foundation and just how to work and interact with people. And, I'll find myself probably once a year running into a situation and popping open the book and just freshening up on, one of the parts of it. And so, that's been huge. Andy Frisella on, his podcast and his whole 75 Hard series or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you did the 75 Hard Challenge. What was the impact of that had on your life, and how did that kind of reshape the way that you think and see life and kind of your work-life balance?
Yeah, so completed 75 Hard summer of 24. And so it completely changed my outlook on life, my work-life balance. So leading up to that, it was very work-focused. Personal health was sort of put on the back burner, just grinding it out and just working all the time. And so had watched the 75 and heard about it for probably 6-9 months leading up to that. And thought it sounded, good and liked a lot of the aspects. And so had a few buddies that we were talking about it, and had one buddy in particular where we both said, okay, let's do this. And he was living in Portland at the time, but we did it together. And then as we started, had another buddy hop on. And so, did that April through June of 24 and completely changed work-life balance. And, as you go through 75 Hard, you have to do 2 45-minute workouts a day.
Yeah.
One has to be outdoors. And so you have to read 10 pages, drink a gallon of water, follow the diet, take the picture. Like, it seems super simple and basic on face level, but just that discipline of doing all those tasks. And, if you miss a task, you start over. And so having that where you had to reprioritize things, like it really showed me that yes, work needs to get done and you can still do all that, but then, taking care of yourself, you can make time for that too. And,
Yeah.
And so it's been huge and, major impact and change in my life, and got fitness and health dialed in, or, still on a journey there, getting better, but, sort of reset things going through that process.
No, and I think that's awesome because it's so in line with what I believe, and I think it's so impactful that as a leader of any organization, your role should be to make a few really good decisions every day, right? And changing from the role of a technician to moving into a manager to ultimately becoming a leader, that your role changes. And a lot of people don't know. They change their title, but they don't change their role. And they want to be involved in the day-to-day, or they want to be involved in the management decisions of running the team day-to-day, and then stepping out and taking the role as a leader and being the one to say, it's okay, I'll eat last. To be the one to say, hey, I'll come in early, I'll stay late, but there's other things that I need to do, or I'm going to prioritize this time in the business, and this is my time to prepare myself to make good decisions in the business. If you're eating like garbage, if you're sleeping like garbage, if you're not taking care of your personal health, all those things I think detract. In my own experience, they 100% detract away from my ability to make good decisions. And my role as a leader and my ability to make good decisions is a direct influence to how is the rest of my life going? And do I have balance in the rest of my life? Some people don't like that or think that that's not possible. I, for one, am a massive advocate for it, that you need to find balance in your life. And that can look different at different points of your career, where there were times where, yeah, I was grinding way harder. I was working more hours. I was in school or going to graduate school or whatever. Like it can look different at different times. But as you become a leader, you need to put yourself in a position where you're making really good decisions that impact other people's lives. And I'm a firm believer that the way that your body works is the way that your mind works. And if you're taking care of your body, subsequently taking care of your mind, you're going to be in a better position to make wise and prudent choices. They're going to benefit everyone else on your team. And so, no, I'm a huge advocate for that as well, and totally commend you for doing that. And I'm yet to do 75 hard, but maybe I'll add that to my list to accomplish this year. So anyway, Anthony, we appreciate you coming. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience with us and all the good that you do. If someone wants to get in touch with you or in touch with your company about doing a project or, getting a hold of you for any other way, what would be the best way for people to reach you?
Our website, www.guhocorp.com. You can also find us on Facebook, but yeah, reach out, give us a call. Love to help with complicated, challenging projects, and yeah,
love it. Thanks, Anthony.